Hi guys, we're back in the kitchen, and today I am going to do just a really quick short video showing you how I dress up the cheap and chipper favorite of university students everywhere, ramen, into something that's more of a meal and something more like what you might get at a restaurant. So let's get started. Now, behind me, you will see a mass of ingredients on the counter, and we're not going to use all of those today, so there's no need to panic. But what I will say is that there are a lot of ways that you can spice up your ramen, shake it up, make it have new and different and wonderful flavors. So I'm just going to talk to you about some of the other options after we've made my particular version, which is a spicy sriracha lime ramen. So to get started, you're going to need one package of just store-bought beef ramen noodles. You can use chicken, you can use any other one that you like. I just tend to like the beef a little bit better, but feel free if you can get your hands on some of the shrimp flavored ramen, you can try that. You could use vegetable, it doesn't really matter. So let's take a look at what's on the counter here. So what you're gonna need for this dish, you can of course do it without any meat in it. I just really like to have a little bit of protein at lunchtime. I just find it holds me over until supper time a little bit better. So there is literally like a third of a chicken breast that I have very thinly sliced. I also really like mushrooms and spring onions in my ramen, but again, you don't have to use those. You can use really almost any kind of vegetable you want. You're going to need a little bit of onion powder. I know that says garlic salt, but it's garlic powder. And I actually like to dust my chicken with a little bit of sriracha lime seasoning here before I put it in the pan. And in my pan, I have some sesame oil, okay, which am going to heat up, and we're going to use that to saute our chicken. And with chicken being sliced this thin, or with any meat really being sliced this thin, it's only going to take a couple of minutes each side to get it thoroughly cooked. I would always suggest though that you do cook your meat before you put it in your ramen, just so that you don't run the risk of getting sick. So let's get our chicken cooked first of all. Okay, so I had just actually cooked another batch of Asian chicken here, so my pan looks a little bit gross, but it's actually all flavors that are relevant to what we're doing. So I've got my sesame oil hot, and I'm just gonna plunk in my chicken. And like I said, all we're gonna need here is a couple minutes on each side. Now that I've got my chicken in there, I'm going to give a quick dusting with my sriracha lime seasoning. I already seasoned with the onion powder and garlic powder, so that's good. And into the mix, I'm going to toss just a tiny little bit, maybe like a teaspoon there, of oyster sauce. Ooh, smells good. Okay, so I just flipped my chicken over onto the other side. It's still probably a little bit pink under there. To that, I'm gonna add my mushrooms. This is actually just 2 button mushrooms that I've very thinly sliced. I'm just gonna give everything a toss. You're not trying to shrink up these mushrooms until they vanish away to nothing. You just really wanna sort of start them releasing a little bit of their liquid. And I've got my heat in my pan. It's like a medium heat right now. It is, because some of the sugars and the oyster sauce are starting to kind of stick on the bottom there, I'm just gonna add a little bit of beef broth. You can add water, it doesn't really matter. You just wanna kind of deglaze your pan a little bit. That's where all the flavor and the good stuff comes from, right? So just kind of scrape gently with your, ooh, that looks good. And you can see where you instantaneously almost get that really pretty dark color. Now, looking at this is almost this is a ton of stuff in this little pan here. This is almost enough for 2 bowls of ramen, but it's literally just a couple mushrooms and like a third of a breast of chicken. So, okay, I'm gonna turn my heat off. I'm gonna take my chicken and my mushrooms off my heat. We're just gonna set them aside. Okay, so while our chicken is sitting over there on the stove resting, let's talk about the rest of our dish. So this is just the traditional noodles that come in the little packets. And again, these are so affordable. I think that's why it makes it so appealing for university and college kids, right? Because these packets, when I bought them at the grocery store the other day, were like 2 for $1, right? So, I mean, it's a cheap, fast, easy meal. But inside each envelope, there you will get like a packet of soup stock powder. If you are concerned about sodium, you might want to forego this and maybe just use some beef broth, a low sodium beef broth. These do tend to be high in sodium, as do some of the sauces that we are going to add in here. So if that is a concern for you, by all means use a different kind of stock, or maybe use half of this and half stock, or whatever you like. But for today's purposes, I am going to use this. So I'm going to just sprinkle my beef seasoning right in on top of my noodles. All right, what else are we going to use today? Well, to sort of pick up the flavors of our chicken and our mushrooms, I am actually going to put a little, again, about a teaspoon of oyster sauce into our bowl. We're going to add a little bit of hoisin sauce. This is more to help with, and again, that's probably a teaspoon, a generous teaspoon, I would say. We're going to add a little drizzle of sesame oil. So again, everything's going in about teaspoon increments. Oops. I've got some chopped garlic here. You can add this or don't. It's sort of at your discretion, but don't go nuts. I mean, this is, as you can see, not very much in here. So I'm just going to toss that right in on top. I have a knob of fresh ginger here. Again, not everyone's so wild about fresh ginger, but I am going to grate some of this fresh ginger in here. Not a ton. That's probably plenty. But you're going to be amazed at how much these little additions kick up the sauce. And then, of course, we've got some fresh lime. I love lots of lime. So let me see, I might need, I shouldn't have cut these into wedges. I'm thinking I should have just left them. Squeeze all our juice out there. And I've got another half here. I think I'm going to use it anyway. If you find when you buy limes at the grocery store, or when you've had them on your counter or wherever they've been, if you find they're a little bit stiff and they don't feel like they are very juicy anymore, just put them down on the counter and give them a good rub with, hard with the palm of your hand. That will oftentimes really loosen up the juices inside for you. Here I have some fresh basil off a plant that I just grow in my kitchen, and I love fresh basil in my ramen, which may seem strange because it is, I guess, more of an Italian, a flavor you associate with Italian food, but it's very good. And then sriracha sauce. So this is where the majority of your heat comes from. So I would always say err on the side of caution if you are not someone that can handle a lot of spice, but I like spicy food. And so there we go. There's my drop of sriracha sauce. So now all we have to do is add some boiling water, get it stirred up, let our noodles nice and soften, and we're going to add, the last thing we're going to add after we taste it though is a little bit of soy sauce, because again, the sodium content, right? We're trying to watch that. So let's get our kettle with our water and add it to our bowl. Okay, here's our boiling water. We're just going to pour over the whole thing. And I do tend to probably use a little bit more water than the recipe may even, or the soup envelope may even call for, but it's okay. I just find that with all the spices and everything else that we're putting in here, the extra little bit of liquid, it's not going to make it, watery tasting. It's going to be really good. So you can see how things are starting to mix and mingle here. Noodles are starting to break up, so just use a little spoon, give them a break, and let them sit there and soak in some of that goodness. Okay, we've got our noodles kind of broken up. They still have a ways to go before I would say that they're cooked, but we're going to add our chicken and mushrooms in here. Yum. Delicious. We're going to give that a little stir. And then we're just going to let that sit and percolate until those noodles are cooked. And then we're going to taste it, and we're going to see if we need to season with a little bit of soy sauce. Again, don't go hog wild with this early on, because all these flavors right now are kind of melding in there, and we want to make sure that it's not super salty when we get into it. So the great thing about these little dishes of ramen soup is that there's literally limitless combinations of things that you can put in to make it to your liking. So if you want to skip the noodles, not use the noodles that come with the little packet, want to save those for something else, go for it. If you want to do completely vegetarian, why not try mushrooms and bok choy and spinach and snow peas? Slivered red pepper is also delicious. I would steer away maybe from something like carrots unless you're going to shred them, because it just takes so long for them to soften to a palatable consistency. But stuff like that, broccoli, you know, some steamed broccoli if you have it left over is a great thing. Bean sprouts, those are all wonderful vegetable additions that you can add into your ramen. Sliced onion, you know, if you prefer regular onion over the spring onions that we're going to garnish with here at the end. Other flavor combinations that you can try. If you like sweet chili sauce, by all means give that a try. If you want it maybe a little sweeter than hot necessarily. Of course, we can always add in a bit of fish sauce. I know some people are skittish about this. I used to be too, because I used to think, ugh. But honestly, when you open it, it doesn't really smell fishy. It just smells briny, salty, and it really does add a beautiful depth of flavor. In fact, when I make my pad thai, I would never, ever make it without fish sauce, because it just adds that traditional flavor that you're looking for. If you would like a little more smoky flavor, why not try some chipotle paste or maybe some chili garlic paste if you have access to that in your supermarket. That's delicious as well. You can General Tso sauce. I mean, who doesn't have a zillion half-used bottles of sauce in their fridge? Most people I know do. I mean, try something. Crushed red pepper, great option. Actually, what I really do like is, and this sounds kind of strange perhaps, but if you take a little bit of peanut butter and some sriracha sauce and some warm water, or some warm beef broth, or even some of your noodle soup stock, and mix it up in a bowl and then add it to your soup. Spicy peanut sriracha ramen, yum, really, really good. In terms of meats, use anything you want. This is great if you already have your meat cooked, if you've had barbecued pork or barbecued beef. I did ramen last week with barbecued beef that we had done on the barbecue. It was wonderful, really delicious. Shrimp, tofu is great. Why not soft boil an egg and then put it on top of your ramen? I mean, it looks really pretty, it tastes really pretty, and the sky's the limit. So get into your fridges, root through those sauces and things, condiments that you have kicking around for when you make stir fries and whatever. See what you like. You can also, you know, if you don't like the little skinny ramen noodles, you can actually just, you can leave those out. You could add udon noodles if you like, or like I say, just do something completely noodle-free if you're trying to watch your carbs and stuff. But for now, let's go back and check on our bowl of ramen, see how it's looking, and we'll decide if we need to season it up with some soy sauce. Guys, how delicious does that look? The broth has taken on a beautiful deep color from when we deglazed the pan with the chicken and the mushrooms in it. And so now, for me anyways, the only finishing touch I need to add are some spring onions, which is lovely. I wish I had some snow peas to throw in here. I would love to have a little bit more greenery in this soup, but this is going to be delicious. Now, I'm going to give it a taste. Let's see. Our noodles are beautifully cooked. Yeah, delicious. Let's see. You can taste the heat of the sriracha, but it's not overpowering. You can taste the nip of the ginger. The garlic is poking through. The lime is delicious. This is awesome. I'm just going to add the tiniest, like maybe a quarter teaspoon of soy sauce, just for a little bit of extra richness in there, but that is all this needs. This is a great meal for folks that work in an office, and I know you may be saying, how? But these little bento type boxes are great if you can cook up your meats and have all your add-ins in these little plastic cups or containers in here, and just take your ramen packet with you. I mean, most offices have a kettle to boil hot water. You know, you can actually even not maybe so much with this one, but I do have a bento box that's like a wide open in the bottom. You could actually use that as your soup bowl. Put your noodles in, add your water in, all your add-ins and stuff. Very convenient way to, and a very affordable way, really, to have lunch at the office. So here is our soup, looking delicious. I cannot wait now to go and have my lunch. This is looking so great. Guys, before I go, if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the little notification bell so that you don't miss it when we upload future videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.